We often say this to ourselves. Why do I have so little confidence? If I just had a little more confidence, I could start anything boldly. If I were just a little more prepared, if I felt just a little more certain, if I became just a little stronger, if my fear disappeared just a little more, then I would speak, then I would begin, then I would try. But strangely, that moment rarely comes. Time passes, but the mind still stands in front of the same sentence. I'm not ready yet. So we wait until confidence comes, until anxiety disappears, until the chance of failure becomes smaller, until we become perfect enough for others to approve of us. But perhaps the confidence we are waiting for does not come from waiting. Perhaps confidence is not a feeling given to us at the starting line. Perhaps it is evidence that slowly builds inside the person who takes one step forward, even while feeling anxious. The book we are talking about today, The Confidence Gap by Russ Harris, quietly challenges this misunderstanding. This book tells us something important. We do not act because we already have confidence. Confidence grows because we begin to act. We do not move because fear has disappeared. We learn how to move even when fear is still there. And perhaps what we truly need is not a stronger positive thought, but a new relationship with the things our mind is afraid of. Many people believe they are stuck because they lack confidence, but the core message of the confidence gap is slightly different. The problem is not simply a lack of confidence. The problem is the habit of delaying action until confidence appears. That is the confidence gap. Between where I am now and the life I want to move toward, there is a gap, and inside that gap, many voices float around. I'm still not good enough. I need to learn more. I need to be more perfect. From the outside, we may look careful, but if we look more closely, fear is often hiding underneath the name of caution. We tell ourselves that we will begin once we are perfectly prepared, but the deeper truth may be this: I do not want to be hurt. I do not want to fail. I do not want to confirm that I am not enough. So we delay the beginning. We delay it for a day, then for a week, then for a month, and at some point, for years. And still, we keep deceiving ourselves. One day when I am ready, when I finally feel confident, I will begin. But this book asks a simple question. Where does that confidence come from? Does it come from waiting quietly? Does it come from thinking perfect thoughts? Does it come from removing every trace of fear? Or does it come from repeating small actions? Confidence often arrives later than we expect. In truth, confidence comes long after action. That means doing something without confidence comes first. At first we tremble. At first it feels awkward. At first we feel anxious. But after trying once and then trying again, after failing in small ways, making small adjustments, and trying once more, we slowly begin to trust ourselves. That is confidence. In that sense, confidence is closer to a record of experience than a feeling. Even though I was anxious, even though I was not perfect, I still tried. Even though I was afraid, I did not run away. I took action, and within me, small pieces of evidence begin to build. Maybe I can do this. When these small pieces of evidence accumulate, we can finally say to ourselves, I may not be perfect, but I am someone who can move. When we lack confidence, our inner world often feels like our enemy. The mind keeps worrying. It imagines the worst-case scenario. It predicts how other people will react. It brings back memories of past failures. It takes small risks and exaggerates them into major threats. So sometimes we wonder, why does my own mind keep tormenting me like this? But Harris looks at this negative side of the mind from a more compassionate point of view. He suggests that the mind is not creating anxiety and fear because it wants to destroy us. The mind is trying to protect us. The problem is that the way it protects us is not always helpful for our lives. The mind says, it's dangerous. Don't do it. Stay where you are. If you fail, it will hurt. People will laugh at you. Do not leave the safe place you are in now. Through these warnings, the mind tries to protect us from pain, from rejection, from shame, and from failure. But the problem is that the mind often confuses real danger with imagined danger. Standing on a stage and giving a presentation does not actually threaten your life. Starting a small business does not immediately destroy your entire existence. Posting your first video on social media does not mean the whole world will judge you forever. Speaking honestly to someone does not mean your entire life will collapse. But the mind exaggerates even small risks, and we believe that alarm as if it were the truth. When we feel fear, we interpret it like this: then I should not do it. But the important shift this book gives us is this: fear may not be a command to stop. Fear may simply be a signal that the mind has detected risk. A signal and a command are not the same thing. When we see a signal that it might rain, we do not give up the entire day. We take an umbrella. We slow down a little. We choose different shoes. In the same way, just because fear is present does not mean we need to abandon the entire direction of our lives. Fear can be something we carry with us. Fear may say, "What if I fail?" But at that moment, we can answer ourselves, "Yes, failure may be frightening, but this direction matters to me." Fear may say, "We are not ready yet." And we can answer, "Yes, I may not be perfectly ready, but I am ready enough to begin small." Belief in ourselves, self-confidence, does not mean the mind has become silent. Self-confidence is the ability to remember where we are going, even when the mind is noisy. What stops us is not always reality itself. Sometimes our thoughts about reality hold us more tightly than reality does. I can't do this. I have no talent. It's too late for me. This is just who I am. I can't stand in front of people. I'm not enough to start again. These sentences are only thoughts, but inside us, they sound like facts. Once the mind says something like this, we receive it as a final judgment about our life. And the moment we accept that judgment, we stop trying. At this point, Harris introduces ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, as one possible way forward. One important concept in ACT is creating distance from our thoughts. Thoughts are not something we can simply erase. They are not something we can deny. And they are not always something we can force into positivity. Harris suggests that we can learn to look at a thought in a different way. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," we can say, "I am having the thought that I can't do this." The difference may look small, but in real life, it is enormous. "I can't do this" feels like a prison, but "I am having the thought that I can't do this" opens the door a little. The first sentence defines me. The second sentence allows me to observe the thought. A small space appears between me and the thought, and inside that small space, we can choose. Will I believe this thought completely? Or will I take one step forward even while this thought is present? For example, when you are about to start something new, your mind may say, "You are going to fail." If you believe that sentence immediately, you stop. But if you take one step back, you can say, "My mind is creating an image of failure right now. My mind is showing me the worst case scenario because it is trying to protect me." Thoughts can be strong. Thoughts can sound convincing. Thoughts can repeat themselves. But thoughts are not commands. We do not have to follow every thought. We do not have to fight every thought. And we do not have to defeat every thought before we can act. We can act while thoughts are still present. Even with the thought, "I don't think I can do this," you can send one small email. Even with the thought, "People will judge me," you can upload your first video. Even with the thought, "I am still not good enough," you can write one page today. Self-confidence is not the state where negative thoughts have disappeared. Self-confidence is the ability not to let negative thoughts sit in the driver's seat of your life. The mind may say, "You are not enough," but you can say, "I know that thought is here, but the small action I can take today is still here too." We do not like uncomfortable emotions: anxiety, fear, embarrassment, tension, self-doubt. When these emotions arise, we naturally want to get rid of them. So we try many things. We try not to think. We distract ourselves. We delay. We prepare more. We create perfect plans. We try to persuade ourselves with positive words. We wait until the emotion disappears. But strangely, some emotions become stronger the more we try to remove them. For example, the more we think, "I must not be nervous," the clearer the nervousness becomes. The more we think, "I must not think about failure," the more vivid the image of failure becomes. The more we think, "I should not care what people think of me," the larger their eyes seem to become. Fighting the mind sometimes gives the mind even more power. So, the confidence gap offers another path. Not moving after the emotion is gone, but learning to move while the emotion is still there. Not beginning after fear has been erased, but beginning while carrying fear with you. This is not recklessness. Recklessness means refusing to see risk. But the courage this book describes is the act of seeing risk and discomfort and still choosing a small action in a direction that matters. Courage may not be a feeling, courage may be an action. Not doing it because you are unafraid, but doing it even though you are afraid. Not doing it because you are certain, but doing it because it matters. Not doing it because you are perfectly prepared, but doing it because beginning small is necessary. We spend too much time trying to remove fear, but we can change the question. Instead of asking, how can I get rid of my fear? We can ask, even with fear here, what is one small action I can take today? This question can change a life, because this question does not wait for the emotion to change. This question brings us back to the present, the action we can hold right now, the one thing we can do today, the message we can send now, the file we can open now, the first sentence we can write now, the small path we can walk now. Confidence begins very small. I'm scared, but I'll try for just 10 minutes. It won't be perfect, but I'll write the first sentence. I don't feel certain, but I'll send one thing today. That one step may look small, but that one step is evidence you are showing yourself. And when that evidence builds, self-confidence builds with it. Many people want confidence, but if we look deeper, what we truly want may not be confidence itself. We have a life we want to live, a person we want to become, values we want to protect, things we no longer want to delay. But because fear appears in front of that path, we search for confidence. So people think they cannot move forward because they do not have confidence. But one of the important messages of the confidence gap is that direction must come before confidence. If I do not know where I want to go, confidence easily shakes because emotions keep changing. Some days we feel motivated. Other days we do not want to do anything. Some days we feel like we are doing okay. Other days we seem terribly insufficient to ourselves. If we follow only our emotions, our life will move in a different direction every day. That is why values matter. Values are different from goals. A goal is a destination. A value is a direction. For example, to become successful is a goal. To live as someone who keeps learning is a value. To make a lot of money is a goal. To become someone who takes responsibility for my family is a value. Goals can fail, goals can be delayed, goals can change because of circumstances. But values can be chosen and practiced today. For example, we can be honest today, we can learn today, we can care for someone today, we can begin again today, we can keep a small promise today. All of these can become small ways of living according to our values. When we lack confidence, we can ask ourselves, what am I feeling right now? This question is important, but there is an even more important question. Even inside this uncomfortable emotion, what kind of person do I want to be? Even if I am afraid, do I want to become someone who does not give up? Even if I am anxious, do I want to become someone who begins? These questions move us from emotion to direction, and when we have direction, we can move even without confidence. This is very important. Motivation says, move when you feel better. But direction says, even if your feelings are not perfect, the next step is still here. Motivation rises and falls, but direction remains. Emotion changes like the weather, but values remain like a compass. If life has been stopped while we wait for confidence, then it is time to change the question. Not, do I have confidence? But, what direction do I want to live toward? Self-confidence is not built only through great success. In many cases, self-confidence begins with very small promises. Waking up at the time you said you would, writing the one sentence you said you would write today, sending the message you said you would send. These things may look too small from the outside. They are not big enough to show off to anyone. They are not dramatic enough to change your life overnight. But self-trust quietly builds each time you keep a small promise. And through that self-trust, you gain the strength to move in the right direction. And when this repeats, the day eventually comes when you do things you once believed you could never do. That is why Admiral William McRaven said, if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. In this way, We all want to trust ourselves. But trusting yourself is not completed just by standing in front of a mirror and saying, "I can do this." Of course, words like that can be helpful at times, but deeper self-trust comes from the actions you show yourself. When small accomplishments and experiences of action accumulate, we begin to trust ourselves a little more. Confidence is not a sudden light that rises from inside us. Confidence is the light of small pieces of evidence we have left for ourselves. That is why what matters is not planning and executing something huge from the beginning. Many people make the wrong decision here. On the day they decide to change their life, they make promises that are too large. I will wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I will exercise for 2 hours every day. I will write perfectly every day. I will change everything this month. But human beings are not that simple. Depending on the situation, we get tired, we feel afraid, we return to old patterns because we are human beings. So the beginning must be small. Small does not mean weak. Small actions are powerful because they can be repeated. Small actions are powerful because even if they fail, they are easy to begin again. Small actions are powerful because they create less resistance in the mind. For someone who lacks confidence, what is needed most is not a giant resolution. What is needed most is one small promise that can be kept today. After you take the action that keeps that small promise, the whole world may not change. But one thing changes: your relationship with yourself. You can say to yourself, "I did not completely abandon myself today." That sentence is quiet, but it is strong. And when that sentence builds, it becomes self-confidence. People who lack confidence often see failure as something enormous. Failure does not feel like a simple result. It feels like a judgment about who they are. When they are rejected once, they feel, "Am I worthless?" When they try something and it does not go well, they feel, "Am I just someone who cannot do this?" But failure is not your identity. Failure is information. Information that tells you what did not work. Information that shows you where to adjust. Information that reveals what you have not yet learned. Information that makes the next attempt more realistic. Of course, failure hurts. The message of the confidence gap is not that failure means nothing. Failure can be embarrassing. Failure can wound us. Failure can be disappointing. But there is a difference between failure hurting and failure defining you. Understanding this difference matters. If we believe failure defines us, we do not try again. But if we see failure as information, we can learn. "I failed" and "I am a failure" are completely different sentences. The first sentence is an event. The second sentence is an identity. When we turn an event into an identity, we trap ourselves too deeply. Self-confidence is not the certainty that we will never fail. A more realistic self-confidence is closer to this: I may fail, but I will learn through failure. It is the attitude of seeing your current insufficiency not as your permanent identity, but as a starting point. When this perspective appears, action becomes a little easier, because the purpose of action is no longer to prove a perfect result. Now the purpose of action is to move in an important direction and to move forward, even in a small way. This makes self-confidence realistic, not the fantasy that everything will go well, but the trust that even if things do not go well, you can move again. That is the kind of confidence that lasts longer. Many people want to look confident, a steady expression, a voice full of certainty, a bold attitude, an image that others admire. But looking confident on the outside and actually building self-confidence are not the same thing. Outer confidence can depend on how other people see us. Will people think I look impressive? Will they see me as someone insufficient? It depends on external eyes. But when we become too focused on the appearance of confidence, we enter fear again. Because now the goal is no longer to live. The goal becomes protecting an image. And when we try to protect an image, it becomes difficult to begin, because beginnings are always awkward. The first piece of writing is not perfect. The first video is incomplete. The first business is unstable. But if we believe we must protect our image, we cannot endure this awkward beginning. So we do not begin. If we do not begin, we may avoid looking like someone who failed. But at the same time, we cannot become someone who learns. Here, an important question appears. What kind of life will I choose? A life safely stopped behind a perfect image? Or a life that truly moves, even if it looks awkward? Self-confidence does not come from looking perfect. Self-confidence comes from moving in an important direction while carrying your imperfect self with you. We do not have to be perfect in front of other people all the time. It is okay to be a little awkward. It is okay to be slow. It is okay to be insufficient. What matters is that we do not spend our lives only protecting an image. From the perspective of our channel's motto, Reboot Life Now, beginning again does not mean becoming a perfectly new person. It means becoming a little more honest. A person who admits they are afraid. A person who sees that they have been delaying. A person who accepts that they are still insufficient, but can still begin. That is the person who starts building self-confidence. Confidence does not grow well through thinking alone. We may understand things in our head, that we need to move even with fear, that thoughts are not facts, that small actions matter. We can understand these things intellectually, but understanding them does not mean life changes right away, because self-confidence is not learned only through thought. It is learned through the body. We know by actually doing. The body remembers experience. At first, your hands may shake, your voice may tremble, your chest may tighten, your mind may feel crowded. But after taking action, even in that state, the body slowly learns. Even discomfort passes. The world does not end just because I am not perfect. This experience is stronger than thought. That is why confidence grows more through experience than persuasion. What we need to do is not perfectly convince ourselves. What we need to do is create small experiences. We show the mind, look, we can begin even if we are not perfect. When this repeats, the mind's prediction slowly changes. In the past, the mind sent warnings like, if you do this, something terrible will happen. But when small experiences of action accumulate, the mind learns something different. It begins to learn, this is a little scary and uncomfortable, but maybe we can try. The confidence that appears here is not fake positivity. It is confidence that comes from real experience. That is why it lasts. Now, I want to leave one question for you who are watching this video. What are you delaying until you feel confident? You do not have to find a huge answer. It may be starting a business. It may be exercising again. It may be writing. It may be contacting someone. It may be uploading a video. It may be starting a new study. It may be reorganizing your life. Whatever it is, what matters is noticing whether you keep saying this. I'll do it when I feel confident. Then today, change the question. Even if confidence does not come, what is the smallest action I can take today? It can be truly small. Sitting at your desk, opening the file, writing the first sentence, practicing for 10 minutes, speaking to one person, choosing the first step instead of making a perfect plan. And after you take that action, say this to yourself. I did not do this because I had confidence. I did this because it mattered. This confession is important. We may not begin with confidence, but we can begin with values. Because family matters, because health matters, because freedom matters, because learning matters. Even when confidence is lacking, what matters still matters. Even when fear is present, my life is still my life. Even when anxiety is present, today's small action is still possible. This is the most realistic hope the confidence gap gives us. Hope is not suddenly becoming strong. Hope begins with the fact that even while fear is present, we can still choose a small action. Do not wait until confidence appears. Do not put your life on hold until perfect certainty arrives. Fear does not have to disappear. Doubt may still remain, but you can still take one step while carrying all of it with you. Self-confidence is not a gift given only to people without fear. Self-confidence is evidence that slowly builds inside the person who chooses a small action in an important direction, even while fear is present. What you can do today may not be a giant action that changes your whole life, but that is okay. One sentence today, one step today, one attempt today, one small promise. That is the beginning. And someday when you look back, you may realize something. You did not begin because confidence appeared. Confidence grew because you began. You do not have to be perfectly prepared. You only have to be someone who begins again. We have left the address of our website in the comments where you can find more information to help you build your confidence. Visit rebootlifenow.com and begin a new life with us. Have a strong and meaningful day.